Welcome to the Shop Rags podcast, brought to you by Berkshire Bike and Board, where we aim to take you inside the bike shop, talking about all the stuff we talk about on a daily basis.
Bikes.
Today I got Jay to my left, Gary to my right. We are going to talk about all things e-bike related, probably specifically focusing on hub drive e-bikes, which are a growing market segment. They're usually a little bit more affordable for the customer, which is pretty cool. Yeah, should be fun. Quick background, we are in the basement of PIttsfield, one of the bike shops. This is Gary's little nook that he's kind of designed and built out, which is pretty cool. It's freezing cold down here, but I had a cup of coffee a second ago, so I'm ready to rock and roll. With that, Gary, how'd you find us? How'd you get into bike riding?
Well, it all started with a flat tire for me, finding Berkshire Bike and Board, and I was looking for a 26-inch 4x4 fat tire, tube, and there wasn't a lot of bike shops to choose from, so I ended up here. And during that conversation, talked to Steve, our service writer, about what it would take for me to possibly become a bike mechanic. Yeah. And he told me that that occasionally you guys hire bike builders, and that would be a good place to start. So that's where I started.
That's where it started, which is pretty much how everybody starts working here at the bike shop.
Except Jaron.
How did I start working here? Same thing. I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. What?
Sales.
Jay was
under me.
Yeah, it was under Jay, and I didn't know. We don't have to get into me. It's not about me today, but basically I was a bike rider like Gary.
Yeah.
When did you start riding electric bikes?
I guess probably spring of 2020 is most likely probably right around the time that I got into just bicycling in general again. Yeah. I mean, the last time I had rode a bike before that, I was probably 16, right before I got my license, and I guess I started riding again when I was 44.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but you're kind of the type of rider now that, like, you're using your bike as transportation a lot.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Especially, when I'm able to, not riding in the snow and salt and stuff.
Yeah, which turns the bike into a completely different vessel. A lot of accessories, which I sometimes like to pick on. We won't do that right this second, but all right, so hub drive e-bikes. Jay, why don't you give us a quick rundown on what the difference between a hub drive and a mid-drive e-bike is?
All right, so yeah, we do usually tend to sell specialized. We're really good at selling specialized non-hub driven e-bikes, mid-drive e-bikes. So the difference is the motor is in the bottom bracket crankset. So what happens is all the power is right here in the cranks, and it gets translated through all the gears in the back. So just like your legs get to use all the gears when you shift, on the hub-driven bikes, there's the motor in the rear wheel. So the motor does not get to use the cassette, the gear shifter on your hand. So the hub-driven bikes are not as efficient. They do tend to have a lot more power to make up for that lack of efficiency in the drivetrain. So it's just a totally different setup.
There's a major advantage to hub drive bicycles, though, at least in my head. Someone want to guess what I'm thinking?
A throttle. It has usually the Class 2 bikes have a throttle.
Typically, it's price.
Bingo.
Yep.
So to what Gary just said, the biggest advantage to a hub drive e-bike generally is a price. The reason for that is, I'm going to stand up here. If I'm a bike manufacturer and I'm going to create an electric bike, and correct me if I'm wrong, I can pretty much take a regular bicycle and put a hub motor on the back here. Versus if I'm going to design a mid-drive bike, I have to design a whole new frame around the motor. It's more complicated. So these bikes are generally cheaper. Like our entry-level mid-drive bike is usually like around $3,000, whereas our entry-level hub-drive bike now is like $1,500. So
or less.
Major value in a hub-drive bike that is sometimes forgotten about.
But then again, people can find online bikes even cheaper.
Yeah,
hub-driven bikes that are even cheaper, and it gets to the point where it's kind of scary. Like they're so cheaply made, the frames are not made well, and yeah, for under $1,000, you might be able to get something on Amazon. Do we like to work on those bikes? No, they kind of give the hub-driven bikes a bad rap.
And unfortunately, you lack in this customer service when you get into bikes like that.
Right. Well, we should talk about direct-to-consumer brands because we're coming out of COVID right now. Everybody and their brother started an electric bike brand during COVID, and it was easy to sell a ton of product, but I'm pretty confident not that this is a good thing, that a lot of those companies are probably going to dissolve pretty quickly. Challenge for the consumer is going to be how are you going to get support on that bicycle battery motor after that company dissolves, because we're already seeing sales from a lot of those businesses decline.
Or it got a lot of people hooked on biking, and then now they're ready for the next step.
That's definitely the positive.
That's the
end of it.
positive.
They buy that bike, they ride into the ground, they come and look at what's new from us.
Absolutely.
So there's so many different ways to look at it.
If you were to pick 3 direct-to-consumer brands that are here to stay, what would they be?
I would definitely pick Aventon.
Yeah.
You know, they've definitely put themselves above the rest of the bikes that are
sure.
like, you know, these bikes. Yeah, they're definitely around for, you know, to stay, I would have to say.
Yeah.
And probably after that, the Rambo bikes are, you know,
yep.
those are pretty popular with the hunters, you know, so I would have to imagine that you know, those are going to be around for a while.
Shout out your bicycle.
What's that?
Shout out your bicycle.
I mean, Himaway is great. You know, it's good. But again, like I was saying, if we called them right now, it would ring about 10 times, and then it would go to a voicemail. And then when you got a phone call back, it would be the warehouse worker.
Oh, really?
You know, would be trying to direct you to the right place. So like they lack in the customer service end. And if you're selling, you know, an inexpensive bike with inexpensive components, you know.
Part of the reason why they can make them cheaper is they're not paying for the after sales support.
Definitely.
Okay, question. So hypothetically, I have a Himaway, and let's just say I bring it to a local bike shop and they say the motor's blown. What am I doing with the bike?
That's not a good thing. No, that wouldn't be a good thing at all. Honestly, I'm not even really sure. You'd be getting a new bike. Yeah.
Am I getting a new bike from Himaway under warranty, or
No,
I'm paying?
Definitely not. Yeah, and if you did get a bike through Himaway under warranty within the first year, you're gonna pay for the bike, and they will ship you a new bike, and then they'll, you know, supposedly reimburse you for that. Yeah.
So how many miles do you have on your Himaway now?
That's a good question. My first Himaway, I have 2. So my first one I have right around 8,000 miles on.
8,000. That's a pretty good run.
With the same drivetrain too.
Same drivetrain.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
God.
And my second one that I bought, I probably have about 4,000 miles on it.
And what made you want to buy a Himaway?
It was advertising. You know, I basically a friend of mine bought an e-bike, and then I just typed in e-bikes, and that was the first thing that came up. And then eventually, you know, Facebook started plopping it in front of me, and I dug in a little further, and then I joined a Facebook group. You know, so I learned about the bike before I bought it.
Something I never do.
But again, man, I mean, what triggered me to buy that bike was it was a fat tire bike, 750 watt. And it was $1,600 at the time.
750 watt battery or motor?
Motor. And my bike in particular, you may probably going to want to edit this part out, but it'll peak out at like 900 watts. So yeah, yep.
Yeah,
so which is pretty sweet.
And the wattage is totally different between Specialized and
the
hub-driven motors. That makes it even more complex, because like all Specialized bikes are 250 or 240.
Hang on. So this is where I get confused.
And
a Specialized full-powered Levo, Specialized Turbo Levo, the electric mountain bike. Correct me if I'm wrong. The motor, is a 90 Newton meter motor.
Okay, 250 watts.
Yeah, see,
nominal.
So it probably has a max output of like 500, probably. Right. You know.
I see.
But they call the 250 nominal, so it can like burn 250 for the whole battery charge. Where it's like these 750 watt motors in the hubs peak out at 750 or more, but they can't burn that for that long.
They'll overheat and blow up or something.
Or the controllers.
They'll suck the battery dry. I mean, honestly, you won't get more than like 10 miles out of this bike if at 28 miles an hour full bore, which is, you know, some good info, you know, for somebody who's weighing out whether they should buy one of these or buy something else, you know.
Here's a question, and it's something I never thought of. I kind of know the answer to it, but like you're saying you got 8,000 miles on your Himaway as well as on the same drivetrain, but on a throttle e-bike, if you're using the throttle a good amount and you're not pedaling, it's actually not really wearing down the drivetrain.
Yep. No, that would be true. I mean, for me personally, I do pedal a tremendous amount. You know, I even shut my bike off just because it's fun, you know, to pedal it and, you know, with it off. I mean, it's a 80-pound bike, you know, so it's up there in weight, you know, but, you know, when it's off, you get a really good workout. But yeah, I mean, even then, it's still an 80-pound bike and you're putting all that wear and tear on the drivetrain. So, you know, it's like either way. yeah, people who
yours-
throttle all the time, definitely. I mean, but they don't get very far. That's one thing that
if you
people
use
should
just the
understand.
throttle and then the hub motor is less efficient, you're kind of just burning through your battery.
10 miles tops, you know.
Is anybody doing a belt-driven hub motor yet? Come on, Jay.
No.
I think
What's
so.
hiding in your dad's basement right now? He's got
think so.
one, probably.
I did see it,
I
not
thought
on
I
an
saw
electric
something
bike, but
today.
I saw something with a drive shaft. It was really cool and like totally off
probably-
subject, but it was like shifted, you know, it was like 12 speed and it was
Internal,
really neat.
maybe?
No, it had a pinion on the outside.
Oh, I've seen some of
Dude,
those.
wicked cool, man. And then
Or
it,
had
like
the
the
pinion
pinion
in the
moved forward.
cranks.
Yeah.
The pinion's in the cranks, so all the gears are in the cranks. But it was a hub-driven bike, so it kind of doesn't make all the total sense. But
Yeah, for this particular case, it wasn't an electric bike.
Okay, let's talk about classes of bikes. So 3 classes of bikes. Why don't you tell us what they are, and then Gary, we'll toss it to you to talk about the class 3 specifically.
Sure.
all right, so the classes of bikes, there's a class 1, which is a 20-mile pedal assist only bike. So you have to pedal, no throttle. There's a class 2, which is usually 20 mile an hour top speed, and it has a throttle, so push button on the handlebar. Class 3 is a 28 mile an hour top speed bike. And now do they make throttles on class 3s now too?
Yeah.
I think they do. So
Yeah,
a
definitely.
class 3 can be a throttle bike or
Yep.
pedal assist.
This is
Most specialized, the specialized we like to sell are class 3. There
Yeah,
are
we
some
like
that
the
are
class 3
top
bikes,
out
there's
at
no
20
question.
miles an hour, which is
Their Specialized is coming out with a bike that's going to have the option for a throttle.
okay. Class 3 bikes with a throttle. So that's going to give you assistance potentially if you don't pedal up to 28 miles an hour. My question is this: like, what's this bike? Class 3?
Yeah.
Event and Adventure. Actually, one of my favorite hub drive bikes. I did a review. It
That's
was
class 2.
kind of ridiculous.
That's class 2.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe the step over was faster.
Oh, maybe.
one. Like
Okay.
the serial ones where like the step throughs
I think
were
that
20.
out of the box, I think out of the box, this does 20 miles an hour.
Even
But
if
you can
this,
mod it.
And you can mod it. Yeah.
let's just say that this was a class 3, hypothetically, and I'm riding it on a flat road with the tires pumped up to the proper pressure. Will the throttle actually get me to 28 miles an hour? Does it have enough juice?
It'll take a while. You know,
will.
it'll take like a half a mile probably to get, you know, it's not like full acceleration. Like, I don't think that there's like a big capacitor involved that's going to like give you a jolt of electricity to, you know. So no, it's a slow moving, you know, 28
It's a
to get
ramp
to
up.
28. Yeah, ramp up. Yep, best way of saying it, definitely.
See, this is where it's like I would hate to be a lawmaker in this to try to deal with this stuff because,
right on.
you know, a lot of companies, I'm not Aventon, I don't believe, but a lot of companies are making like pretty gnarly stuff that is super fast, and then they just put pedals on it instead of pegs, and they're
Yep.
saying this is an electric bike, and it's part of the reason why a lot of the electric bikes are getting a bad
It's
rap, which is
unfortunately going to
unfortunate.
ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they already got shut down in the city with all the delivery guys. This was years ago.
But even now that I'm thinking about it, you know, my bike, my Himaway, out of the box, it did 22.
Nice.
So,
And it's
you
a
know,
class 3.
I'm not sure. You know, now that we're talking about it, it might be a class 2. You know,
Class 2, which would mean 20 miles an hour with a throttle.
right?
Oh yeah, it couldn't be. I don't think class 3s, at least this past season, you could have a class 3 bike with a throttle that would bring you to 28 miles an hour. I believe if
Right.
it had a throttle, it had to be 20,
Right.
and then you could pedal it up to 28.
Yep.
But the throttle on its own wouldn't bring you to 28 miles an hour.
Yeah, and most of these bikes have a little, you know, you can go into the passcode and open them up, and
that's where things get really
yeah,
interesting.
and then you know you can also buy another display from you know another company that you know, and they'll ask you what you want your parameters at, and basically that makes everything null and void at that
Right.
point. You know,
the
It voids
whole-
the warranty on the bike.
yeah, yep.
doesn't sound like there's much of a warranty when you get them anyways.
No, not at all. But at that point, like one of my bikes, my first Himaway, like there is no speed limit. It just goes
How fast can you get it up to?
probably about 32. You know, it only goes so fast with my weight, and you know,
So this is kind of what I wanted to get into is the hot rodding of these things, which is not something that we necessarily do here at the bike shop. Well, I can say that we don't do it here at the bike shop, but it is the future, and there's a ton of people doing these. I mean, we all know. Look
It's
at a
at
Tesla.
home DIY.
Yeah,
I mean, the internet is
the
learn
capabilities
anything
of
on the
electric
internet.
batteries and motors are pretty infinite, especially these days. Like, what are you seeing out there that people are doing?
I mean, for electrical part, not really too much. I mean, the big thing with these motors that is that you can open these up. So you got like 6 screws here, and you can open that up and then clean out the grease that came in it when it was factory, and then you could put some better grease in there that'll
if I wanted to
it ultimately will make it faster. It'll give you more acceleration.
Just from changing the grease.
Yeah. Yep.
So if I got one of these, let's just say hypothetically, and I wanted to go 35 miles an hour, there's a whole culture of people on the internet that are selling like, what's controlling it? Is it the controller up here?
Yep, that's a controller. Because the thing is that this is a brushless motor. So just like with our RC cars, we're running a lithium ion battery in this bike, but like these RC cars here, they run lithium polymer. So it's a little bit different and it's way more unstable. So that's probably why the bike manufacturers haven't gone that route yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, when that happens, essentially that's going to make it so that these bikes will go way faster. So the point is that the motor can take way more electricity, amperage and everything than what we're giving it right now with these lithium ion batteries.
So it's not the motor that's the limiting factor. It sounds like it's like almost like the wiring and the
battery.
The battery.
Yep.
But is there a controller box in there somewhere?
Yeah. Yep. And this one is probably down close to the bottom bracket.
It's
most
in the
likely.
frame now.
Yeah.
Though?
Yep. Yeah, my bike it's exposed.
That's what usually burns out on these. Like that's something that like will burn out commonly on the bikes.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I haven't had a problem with my bike yet. I've tons of video of me going through rivers and like huge puddles and stuff like that, and where people said that you can't get them wet. You could definitely get them wet. You can Yep.
I mean, the other downside to the hub-driven stuff is the wheel, getting the wheel on and off for a flat tire.
Yeah. That's the number one. And for whatever reason, when somebody calls and they say that they have a flat on their fat tire e-bike, it's always the back tire.
Well, this is where I'm going to try to explain this a little bit better. As a guy who doesn't really know how to work on bikes that well, there's a constant complaining from mechanics and bike shops because people will bring in bikes like this and bike shops will charge $15 or $20 to change a flat tire, and that's fine when you bring in a road bike and it's pretty easy and it's pretty quick. But on a bike like this, there's a cable right here. You can kind of barely see it on this bike. It's got like a coupling mechanism, so this one's decent. And the new
this one's good. The old style is bad.
The new one though, what's the new one on that there's a new connector here that's awesome. I don't think we've seen a bike with it yet, but
so like my bike, one of the better things that I like about the Adventure is that you don't have that wiring going through the hub on the drive
where does
side.
This one come through?
It goes through on the non-drive side. So it goes into the hub, but it goes through the non-drive side. So most e-bikes up until just last year, all the wiring went through the drive side, which made it impossible to. That's why I'm still running the same drivetrain.
I see. So like on a bike like this, somebody will bring it in, like, change my flat tire, please. I'm like, okay, we'd love to help you out. And then it's like, all right, first you got to hoist this thing into a stand, which isn't fun. They make these automatic raising and lower ones now, which we have at a couple of the shops. Gary keeps asking for one. Someday soon we'll get you one down here. You wrestle this. I mean, how much does the back wheel weigh?
I'd say 30 pounds.
30-pound back wheel, because again, there's the
motor.
Motor is in here. You get it off. A lot of times these are bikes that people are using as transportation, which is great, but they see a lot of salt and grime and just debris from the dirt. So it's like you wrestle it off, a bolt strips, the connector goes bad, and all of a sudden your $20 flat repair is 3.5 hours later, and you're fighting with it. And so it's tricky. And like I think what we need to do better as bike shops and people that work at bike shops is like explain to the customer the why this is happening, how we're navigating it, but
how to prevent it. Just pump up your.
Yeah, that
pump up
too.
your tire.
But these ones come in, with punctures, right?
I run flat out in my tires. So it's got a Kevlar,
Is it a sealant?
Yeah, basically it's like stands, but much thicker, So because I don't want to have to change this, I don't want to have to call somebody to have to come get me. Like if I get a flat on the side of the road, like that's ending my day,
For sure.
Yeah. So that's the downfall with that. But the big trick with these rear hub motors with changing the tires is you got to flip the bike over. That's the only way to do it. You flip it over, put it on its handlebars. It got some blocks to put underneath the handlebars, and then you just use gravity.
We're getting closer to e-bikes being like cars in a lot of different ways.
Right on.
For better or for worse.
I think for better a lot of the ways. I mean, I say this a lot of times, like a lot of times like hardcore cyclists are anti e-bike, and it's silly because, you know, insert road bike guy meme here is like they'll come into the bike shop and be like, e-bikes, nah, not for me, you know, I don't know, not my thing. And it's like the best thing you have kind of advocating for you on the road as a cyclist is more people on the road on bicycles. So if there's one thing that e-bikes are making people do, it's getting more people on the road, and e-bikers seem to ride their bikes a lot more as well. So it's good for all of us in general. It's just we're in that like push and pull with, you know, government and the people of like trying to figure out how to make it nice and happy to play for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, on the subject of that, the biggest thing that I can, you know, suggest to anybody is whereas like this bike is super heavy, you know, Specialized has multiple bikes that barely even look like an e-bike, and honestly, you could get right on those bikes and ride them
for sure
without even turning them on.
Right.
And you know, when you get tired, then you turn it on and you can ride another 30 miles. You know.
Yeah.
They're twice as much, but as you're
going to get way more, and you're getting way more bang for the buck, in my opinion, and you're also getting that customer support, you know, and even more so being with a bike shop. Like, you know, you're getting one-on-one, you know.
In the subject of governments and laws and stuff like that, there's been a lot of issues lately of like, you know, you hear about batteries catching on fire and are these safe and what's the protocol? I feel like we should dig into it a little bit. Like, but there is an issue where batteries are catching on fire. Why is that happening?
So just based on my experience from what I understand, and I'm sure that we have other employees, especially new employees now, that could answer this a lot better than I can. But basically, you know, it's all about discharge, you know. So if you have a bad cell, then your battery isn't charging to its full potential. Mm-hmm. So then you're going to end up with a problem eventually, you know. So if you discharge a lithium polymer or a lithium ion battery, you know, fully, like you did back in the day with the regular NiCad batteries that you'd have in a drill or something.
Sure.
You know, before you charged it, like it would blow up. So
Really?
So all these bikes, the RC cars, anything that runs these lithium ion or lithium polymer batteries all have a low voltage cutoff, and you can also set that on your controller. So, you know, you can set it so that it'll cut off on a lower voltage. But basically, the more you discharge this battery, the more dangerous it can be.
They are
you know,
dangerous.
I mean, basically, you don't want to discharge it, and when the bike says it's done, like, don't turn it back on and keep riding it.
The dangerous thing too is like, yeah, there are some things where it's like a bike comes from the manufacturer and it's a bad batch or something, which is definitely not good. The bigger issue seems to definitely be like the bikes that somebody gets that's kind of hot rodded, and I mean it's like hot rodded cars back in the day. You know, it wasn't safe, but they're cool now. We like them, so like time, you know, will probably heal this and shake it out. Like the thing that does, troubles me a little bit is like, where does the bike end and where does like a different style of transportation vehicle begin? You know, like a 40 mile an hour contraption just has
that's
two
definitely
wheels.
It ends at 28 miles an hour.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean by definition.
But how do you know if it wheels in and if there's no sticker on it that says this bike goes 40?
I mean basically it's about enforcement at that point. Right. You know.
Yeah, I mean the mechanics are good. The service writers are good at spotting stuff. And
the Vado at the shop in GB, that thing goes 28. It's a pedal bike, no throttle, and I go 28 on it all the time. And I'll tell you that you are hauling the mail at 28 miles an hour, sitting upright on a bike through town. Like it is cruising.
Yeah, you're definitely jamming.
Jay can't go 28 miles an hour on his race bike on a flat road.
Remember the Specialized Turbo that we had, like the Turbo S?
Oh, the OG?
The hub-driven Specialized
that thing was a beast.
Bike would go over
Marks
28.
has it now.
That's awesome.
And it would go so fast.
It had no cutoff.
I don't know.
That bike had no cutoff.
I don't know what it had.
Maybe from the factory.
That battery
it did,
was old, but that was like the first Specialized e-bike, and it had a hub-driven motor, and it was fast. I mean, that is one thing about the hub-driven bikes is they do have, I don't know if it has more get up and go exactly, but it's fun to just hit the throttling. I mean, it is fun. Everyone
it's
loves
fun in
that.
the woods too. You know, I mean, when you're pedaling along and you got to do those sharp corners, it's nice to be able to stop pedaling and just hit the throttle, and Well,
the crazy thing is too is it's just going to get more and more refined. Like
Yeah, definitely.
I love riding mountain bikes in the woods, but I definitely love riding dirt bikes in the woods too. So when these are like super refined, I mean, it's going to be hard to say. It's a slippery slope to really stand on, but like I'm going to have just as much fun on a ripping electric bike in the woods, but it probably shouldn't be called a bike at that point. You know, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, like I was saying, I was doing some research on this micro mobility, and that's what it's about. It's got to be, you know, it encompasses all the way from wheelchairs to electric bikes to golf carts. It's just got to be under 28.
If I'm going like this, around a corner.
And it can't have no gas motor, so no internal combustion motor. Under 28, electric or human powered.
I see.
Yeah. So this is definitely like a new term. Like,
we're in the gray area.
Because there's so much new stuff
They're
coming out,
figuring
man.
it out as we go.
I think it's cool though. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Okay, normally at the end of the Shop Rags episode, we have the guest bring in their bicycle so we can roast it a little bit. Gary was afraid of getting his bike roasted by me. So on the fly, I thought of something different, which was if we could each build our dream electric bike right now. Wheel size, battery, motor, riding position, transportation, whatever, you name it. I think we should kind of give some ideas what would be cool. I'm going to let Jay go first and give Gary a second to think about it. Nice. So Jay, dream e-bike build. What do you want in one?
I guess the thing I need right now is a cargo bike. I could definitely use either like a long tail or like one of those like...
What are you going to carry on it?
Dutch style front loaded bikes. My bikes to work. So I can work on my other bikes and not have to put them in my car.
So you're thinking...
And anything. Go to the grocery store and...
Long tail.
I don't know. I mean, it would be sick to get one of those like front cargo. What is it called?
The Reese Muellers.
There's so many different.
Yeah, the Reese Muellers are nice.
I mean, I could find a long tail a lot easier out here.
Big tire, small tire.
Doesn't matter. I don't care about the tire size really.
Really?
26-inch. I like the big wheels, but
what about
on a
speed?
Cargo bike, 28.
Good?
I mean, it doesn't have to.
You're not in for speed.
No, I would want it to be mid-drive. I like mid-drive.
You like the mid-drive?
I like putting big gears on the e-bikes, and on a mid-drive e-bike, being able to like point it at the steepest pile of dirt or a mountain, and just it's so fun to go up. No, I don't need throttle.
You're not into the throttle?
Just like a huge cassette in the back, and just point it, because like I love going up stuff that's so crazy steep.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. Just like as you're pedaling up with a motor, like. Just trying to keep your feet on the pedals and just balancing it as you ride up a washed out dirt like Jeep trail. And it's hilarious.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that Jay said, I've definitely, been thinking about this for a while because I actually want to build one at some point, but carbon fiber frame, 1,000 watt, mid-drive, 6-inch fat tires, tons of torque.
How big a diameter wheel?
26 by 6, probably.
26, really?
Yeah. And then something nice and torquey that, just like Jay said, I'm not really, for the one that I would want, I mean, I wouldn't be in it for the speed at that point. It would be all about climbing and getting to places that I haven't been before.
Front shock, rear shock?
Probably both. Yeah. Have to be a soft tail.
You missed on that, dude. You crazy?
Yep.
Anything else specific that you'd think the e-bike should
have? Just have to be powerful.
You're into power.
Yeah, more about the torque. I want to be able to pedal it, and not even necessarily the throttle. It's just I like to be able to pedal it and feel that motor doing what it's supposed to do.
I see. All right, ask me.
All right, Jaron, what would be your dream e-bike?
Because I came up with a question, I had a little more time to think about my answer. I like small wheels. I want like a 20-inch wheel, fat tire. So I want 6-inch. How wide is this tire?
It's 4.
4 inches. I want a 4-inch wide tire, smoother tread like a Gravel King tread probably. No, there's nothing better than Gravel King tire as far as I'm concerned. I want full suspension. And then I started thinking about cars. Like, what does my car have that my bike doesn't have? So
CD player.
I'm right with you guys. Airbags, that's interesting. Is like
a cigarette lighter.
Building like my dream e-bike would definitely be to kind of replace the car. So I'm thinking, I want a seat heater, right? Like we ride in the winter all the time. I'd be driving that thing to work. I want a seat heater.
Yeah. And have Leo make you a windshield.
I want a windscreen. Yeah. That's where I was going. I want full suspension, a seat heater. I want. I don't need hand warmers because I'll use pogies. That works fine. But I do want a windscreen because I ride a lot in the winter and my freaking face gets cold. And then I started going off the deep end on like
stereo. You want
CD
a
player,
booming stereo.
AC.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to think about. I mean,
Definitely.
a lot of this stuff is here, which is crazy. I think the difference is like in the car world, all that stuff is here and it's super refined. Whereas on e-bikes, like, even this bike, for example, like the power delivery is choppy. Even though this is probably the best direct to consumer, like fairly budget value oriented bike brand, the power delivery is still shitty.
It's still just a little,
Yeah, they're not as refined. I mean, yeah, sure, a Specialized is a pretty refined bike, but
brute force.
they're not building my dream bike yet.
Yeah, I mean, most people come into the bike shop and we say, oh, this one goes 28. And they're like, oh my God, that's so fast. And we're like, whoa, it's not like it just goes 28 and that's it. It's like it ramps up to that. Like these other bikes go only 20 and people jump on them and they're pretty intuitive.
I'll also add that, like, I don't need a throttle. I do like a throttle. Sometimes I think it's just kind of fun, like
Definitely.
the novelty of it. But I do need 28 miles an hour. Like if I'm driving, right now I'm like 14 miles from work or something. So it's...
To GB.
Yeah, it's like a big difference when you're doing that commute at, like if I ride on my regular bike and I do it at 21 miles an hour. Come on, something, nobody? I'm tossing you guys a softball here. When I do
it's
it
like
on my
2
gravel
hours.
bike and I average 21 miles an hour...
Less than an hour.
I don't average 21 miles an hour on my gravel bike. Not yet.
Yeah, got it.
But if I do it at 15 miles an hour...
But yeah, you end up doing it at 12, 13 miles an hour and you get there around an hour.
Whereas
Over
if you
an
do it
hour.
at 28, it starts to really 28 miles an hour in anywhere urban.
But you're not going
is-
28, an average of 28 miles an hour. You're still going 21, 22.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm driving at is like, if you have a bike that has the capacity to go 28 miles an hour pretty easily and consistently, anywhere urban, commute 10 miles or less, your commute is almost identical in length of how long it's going to take you in a car.
100%.
If not faster. Whereas the 20 mile an hour bikes that you're going 15 miles an hour most of the time, it's not quite there, but like 28 mile an hour bike is faster than my car in an urban area. So
no
I want
doubt,
28 miles an hour.
110%.
Yeah, but like I can roll up to the big Y on my Como and like kick the kickstand down in the doorway and just like run into the store and be
We should
done.
do that
Not have to
sometime.
worry
We should
about
go from
parking.
one point to another in the city and time it on e-bikes.
Because you don't have to worry about parking a car. Like you park the
Great
e-bike.
YouTube video.
The e-bike or the bike racks aren't very occupied.
Oh, there's
so you just like roll
there's-
up. And,
the benefits of using a bicycle in urban areas, even as like a replacement to your car when it comes to cargo and stuff like that, are infinite. The problem is that,
people have cell phones
well,
while they're driving.
I was gonna more drive along the lines of like, the auto industry is smart and they've realized that they can sell everybody a $50,000 car because they can finance it over 6 years. Whereas in the bike industry, if it's $10,000, even if there's like, programs that'll let you finance it for a year, it's still, $900 a month, which is more than somebody's $50,000 car payment. So
Right.
the bike industry, the barrier to entry is a little bit higher. And I would like to see that potentially change as the bikes last longer. Like it would be hard to finance a bike for 6 years right now because it's not going to last you 6 years. But as things get better, maybe 3-year financing on a $12,000 recent Mueller.
Well, hopefully there'll be
everyone
more-
would have them.
The
Yeah,
rebates
I
are about to
agree.
come around, right?
Yep.
That helps.
So that'll be cool.
It does. It's already starting.
Yeah. Okay. Pressing words, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns.
E-bike is life.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about legislation, I think that eventually you're going to probably see maybe like a flag
Yep.
to indicate e-bike.
A
I mean,
flag
as
law?
I don't know. I'm not. I mean, the biggest complaint that I've heard from like drivers was that they didn't realize that they were going 28 miles an hour.
A lot
They
of
saw
this-
a bike and they didn't realize.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we can
It was
look
gonna
to
be
like,
there in seconds.
Europe is always a few years ahead on bike transportation type stuff.
Definitely.
And
See
a lot of the bikes,
Copenhagen, they're like 100% converted.
yeah, a
All
lot of the
bikes.
stuff over there is like there's blinkers and rear tail light. We were just talking about this bike has blinkers built into it now and here. But like blinkers, rear tail light, stronger
License
front
plate
headlight, license plate holder. I don't know
Well,
if
that was
that's
for
real or
bikes
not.
that like that turbo bike or like Stefan's yellow Vado. That's a Euro spec and it goes
That had a horn on it.
20. It goes over their limited speed, so it had to be.
I mean, that's a hot rodded bike because it's
No,
Euro
it's
spec,
not.
but it
It's
goes
a Euro
28
spec.
miles an hour.
But it's an American bike. Yeah, it's a
the
weird.
Euro spec e-bikes cut out way lower.
They do. That's why it has that license plate holder on the back, so that it like so then they could like in the UK they can like
Gotcha.
put a plate on it
register
and it's like
go faster.
and then
Well,
it could be
that's-
outside of the e-bike class. So it's like I don't know, all the legislation and the regulations.
See, we
are
could go
crazy.
like that's the thing is like I mean, you know, I'm opening up another Pandora's box here, but where things get interesting is like the part of the issue. I feel like I'm getting older now saying this, but like it's so easy to just spend $1,000 and get this missile that takes you 40 miles an hour with a throttle.
Yeah.
Whereas like to get a car, you need to like get a license and, you know, get insurance.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's not open that.
Right.
that
Yeah.
box
Because I honestly, we could do a whole episode just on that.
And
alone,
we will, 'cause it's
honestly.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I
could
do
talk
feel
about
like
that all
like
day.
you just said something about like drivers not realizing that the bikes go 28. I mean, I do feel like that kind of makes it safer while you're out on the road, especially a road that's speed limit at 35, 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
If you're biking on that road and you're cooking at 20 miles an hour, that car comes around the turn and they're gonna see you for a while. They're gonna be coming up on you, as opposed to like if you're going 10 miles an hour on your pedal bike, you're sitting in the middle of the road almost.
Yeah, I mean,
they
for
come
me
up on you
personally,
much quicker.
I ride much faster in the city, and I use the throttle way more, just
Right.
because
Cruising
like
through traffic.
Yeah, trying to get like I don't want to be the guy that they're waiting for at the intersection. I want to
Yeah.
get through the intersection and be
it,
done with that. So
It's dangerous. I mean, regular bike,
it definitely
e-bike.
is.
In
Either way.
America, unfortunately, it is dangerous, but there are things you can do to try to make it safer.
Mm-hmm.
Lights, reflective clothing. I mean, we can go on and on about that too,
Yeah.
but I think we're at the limit here. Once again, this is Shop Rags, so we're bringing it inside the bike shop, brought to you by Berkshire Bike and Board. We had on Gary. Thank you, Gary, for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jay,
thanks
for
for
helping
having me.
out. Thank you, Jason.
Free
for
test rides every day.
Yeah, free e-bike test rides. That's the big thing here. We want to get more people on e-bikes because we think they're awesome. If you have a bike you want us to roast, or if you have a person we'd like to have on the podcast, send us an email, write a message in the chat or the comments or something. I don't know how the internet works, but we need ideas. We need new people. We'd love to have them. This is fun. We're having a good time with it. Nobody's watching it. We don't care. We're going to keep doing it. If you like what you heard, if you want to see more of this, it goes a long way. If you could click on the thumbs up on this video, subscribe. I should have said that at the beginning. Round up for distance, round up for time. Thanks for watching.